Yes, this is me sailing off the edge of the map to my untimely demise. Probably not the smartest thing to do. But while this indeed is dumb, it's far from the dumbest of ways I have died in Valheim as I count them down all the way down to the absolute dumbest way to die in this Viking world. When first landing in Valheim, your biggest threat is not the boar, neck, or even the grayling, but trees. If not careful in the early game, a fallen tree will easily one-shot you. Further, be careful of slopes, as if one of these capture enough momentum, the rolling will quickly make a pancake out of you. Unfortunately, trees are not the only embarrassing way I have died in the meadows. In fact, bees have gotten the better of me on more than one occasion. Whether I wandered into a wooden home unaware of their presence or got a little too close when searching for the coveted honey. Another source of dumb deaths is of course failing to eat sufficient food. And you might say, Spazzy, you can't die of hunger, what do you mean? Well, not eating food will never directly lead to your death. It will be one of the major factors contributing to it, as you will see how those deaths materialize in later silly ways in this video. With the meadows mostly out of the way, it should be time to head into the Black Forest, which leads to our next way to die in not being prepared. Progression in Valheim is focused around working your way through a biome, collecting materials, and upgrading your armor and weapons to ready yourself for the next. But sometimes we can get a little curious, like diving into a fresh Black Forest and getting mobbed by grey dwarfs or absolutely waxed by a troll. Of course, if you've been watching any of my speedrunning videos recently, you have likely learned that fire can be a wicked weapon in any Viking's arsenal. Of course, that is until you walk into it, lighting yourself ablaze. Your campfires can even be a huge threat in the safety of your home, and even more dangerous when, you guessed it, you haven't eaten any food. Stepping on your fire when in a hungry state will put you in the dirt incredibly quick. In your home and hungry is also where fall damage typically gets me in my next dumb way to die. If you've ever been in a hurry in this game and are at low health, you will quickly learn the threat of a little bit of fall damage can do while running down a set of stairs. But do not worry, this is only the first of many dumb ways to die to fall damage in this video. Of course, running isn't the only athletic activity that will get you killed in Valheim. If going for a swim on minimal stamina, you won't last long on the open sea. Without stamina, your Viking will quickly lose health, and if far from shore, you will not last long. Deaths like these are particularly common while sailing. Sometimes you can get a little relaxed and goofy while on a sailing adventure and start working on your jump skill. If not careful, you could come flying off and find yourself stranded in the ocean. Fortunately, in single player, ships immediately stop when leaving the ship to save you from drowning. In multiplayer, however, you will be at the mercy of your comrades to return and save you. Speaking of multiplayer, Valheim won't pause when playing with friends. Countless times I've gone AFK and returned to find myself awoken in bed, following destruction of me, my base, and dignity at the expense of a troll raid or worse. The second of our dumb deaths related to fall damage will surely not garner me any pity. If you did not know, both Deathsquitos and Jarl are rideable. When leaping upon their backs, the creatures will start rising and rising. Without a feather cape, you unfortunately won't have a safe way down. Since the Ashlands update, a fire hazard setting was added as a world modifier, presenting all kinds of creative new ways to wipe yourself out. With this setting enabled, any fire near wooden structures can spread, and if not paying attention, you can easily burn your house down. If inside, you yourself will perish to the flame. Of course, even without the setting enabled, you can easily succumb to perhaps the most embarrassing way to die on this list, which would be to smoke inhalation. Without careful exhaust, your character can start taking tremendous damage to the smoke, and if not aware, can take you down with it. Don't play with fire, kids. Next on our list is of course our second encounter with the dreaded Deathsquito. While deaths to these creatures are common, I don't usually characterize succumbing to them as dumb. Unless of course, we pair them with our old friend of sailing on an empty stomach. I don't know how many times I have been sailing by a plains with 25 health, only to get one-shotted out of the blue by a brave skeeter sicking me out on the open sea. Coming next on this list is the first dumb way to die in the Ashlands. Now I generally don't consider anyone dying in this biome as dumb, but I for one certainly consider when standing on what appears to be safe terrain, only to burst into flame as a pretty frustrating way to die. Hopefully this can be made more clear in the future. Normally, I wouldn't say there's any shame in perishing to a serpent on the open sea, unless you do it this way. I'm embarrassed to admit, but there was once a time while fighting a serpent where my bow hit my ship one too many times, and well, yes, I destroyed my ship, leaving me helpless in the middle of the ocean to drown or be thrashed by the serpent. With the Mistlands came the feather cape, which would finally put an end to my stupid fall damage deaths. Right? Right? Nope. Like any other armor, the cape has durability, and if not paying attention, it can break like it did for me. Unfortunately, I didn't notice this, took a leap, and to my surprise, plummeted to my death. Or when I crafted the Aspen cape for the first time, I put it on, teleported to my fortress base in the Ashlands, and immediately took a header off my fortress wall. Whoops. And speaking of the Ashlands, this update introduced the Harbinger of Chaos in the Catapult. While normally this is a handy tool, enabling you to vault yourself across the map, it has a dark side as well. If not wearing your trusty cape, this thing can launch you to an early grave. Portaling in Valheim is an enormous time saver, but did you know it can be dangerous? Be careful where you place them, as if placed in the wrong location, you might be setting yourself for a steep fall upon a return trip. This next one led to quite a few arguments between my friends and I on our dedicated server. My buddy decided to build a full wall of stakes around his base, which also contains our portal hull. While on my way to his house to dive into a portal, I of course lost track of my speed and skewered myself on his stake wall, more than once I might add. And by the way, we use DatHost to host our servers, and you too can take advantage of a 30% discount on your first month of server hosting if you use my link in the video description. Like the spikes, ballistas can make a fine tool for base defenses, but in my opinion, do more harm than good. In our server, we have a few of these placed around our Mistlands base. They of course don't discriminate friend or foe and have taken me out on more than one occasion. Kicking off the top 5 dumbest ways to die in Valheim is where we start to get super ridiculous. Of all the things in this game, you would think the garbage, if anything, would be harmless. Nope. The Obliterator can unexpectedly do a ton of damage if you aren't careful when calling upon Thor's wrath. If not careful, he will strike you down. When bumping into a pufferfish, they will do mild damage to you, which normally isn't much of a problem, unless you once again combine it with the fact that you are starving yourself. In my experience, they are most dangerous when sailing, as occasionally a pufferfish can find itself landing on your ship. If bumping into one on an empty stomach, the poison damage just might be enough to take you to Davy Jones's locker. Breaking into the top 3 is another own goal with the Eider refinery. If you have never noticed, while Eider is refining, bolts of Eider will spray out of the refinery. Further, if dropping refined Eider on the ground, it too will release projectiles. Normally, this is only a threat to weaker creatures like graylings or even nearby birds. However, if at low health, the lightning and poison damage it causes can even take you down if not careful. Many of these untimely deaths, as you have seen, are often related to not having a full stomach, but this one takes the cake in that regard. Buke berries, of course, are used to empty your stomach in favor of better foods. However, you may have not noticed, while vomiting after eating them, you also take damage. If you eat too many of these, you might accidentally bring your health below 0, literally vomiting yourself to death. And the number 1 dumbest way to die in Valheim is to windmills. Yes, you heard that right. These actually can do damage to players, and sometimes quite a bit. In fact, their blades do 20 damage every 2 seconds you are in contact with them. While it makes quick work of Deathsquitos, it can also make quick work of you too, if not careful. Of course, if you have died in any of these ways, you might want to consider checking out my video on strategies to never die in Valheim ever again.